Now, among the voices hoping to discourage Netanyahu against the proposal is the United Nations Human Rights Chief, Michelle Bachelet, warning that the consequences could be disastrous, saying annexation is illegal, period, in a statement rejected by Israel's foreign ministry. And for more on that, joining me in studio is legal advisor for the Israeli Movement for Governability and Democracy, Simcha Rotman. Simcha, a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for
We're
having me.
hearing this over and over again from many in the international community, often from the United Nations, that in Israel's plan to annex, using the words annex, parts of Judea and Samaria is illegal. Is it legal or is it not?
First, when you talk about international law, you have to remind yourself that there is no such a thing as international law concerning those kind of questions. You can have treaties, but those kind of questions are not an international law matter, because almost every question you will ask will be unique to the case in Israel. You don't have precedent and you don't have a legislative body. But if you talk about the way you interpret international law as a general rule, the only applicable law or document that concerns Judea and Samaria that has any legal meaning in the UN is Article 80 to the UN Charter. And it says that the rights that were recognized before by the British Mandate are recognized by the UN. So, because this part, the Judea and Samaria were part of the British Mandate to Palestine and Israel, and they are designated for the to the homeland of the Jewish people, to say that to get them into the Jewish homeland, to State of Israel, is illegal, is just plainly wrong. There is no other legal binding decision or anything you can imagine that will say otherwise. That's the only thing that's relevant.
So it's almost just scare tactics to continue to say these words? Well, what could happen after Israel?
Purely political and scare tactics. There is nothing legal to it.
So that would mean to say that if Israel moves forward with this move and the international community have continued to cry illegal, illegal, nothing would actually happen?
Things can happen, but not because of the legality or illegality of the issue. Things can happen because if Israel is strong in the international world, it can block actions. If Israel is weak, Israel will not be able to block actions, but it's purely political, there is nothing legal to it. I have to remind you, the US is now basically declared war, whatever on the ICC. The ICC is an international legal entity, and its application of the rules are arbitrary. They have no legal basis. So the US, which is a powerful player in the international scene, says, I don't care what you're going to say. What's the law? Whose side the law in? It's only power and politics.
But we do know that the International Criminal Court is expected to launch an investigation into whether Israel has carried out war crimes. Talk us through where things stand with that.
Again, also the ICC is also, the ways they use international law is biased, is political, has nothing to do with precedent, because many other countries that have done much less compared to Israel concerning taking land, concerning dealing with occupied territories and occupied people, have nothing to do with the ICC. So the ICC is operating on a political basis, and the way to act against this is on a political scale.
Sure, but then I have to ask, what is the point of these bodies then that have Article 80, for example, in the United Nations and the ICC, where where things are filed as and investigations are launched? If there aren't consequences, they're not binding.
So the ICC is really not binding in our case. Is not binding. Of course, there are some countries that will respect the rules, and it might create some political problem to our people, to senior officials in the army. They will travel to a country that wants to give us hard times. They will give us hard time. But again, it's a political question. It's not a legal question. Article 80 and the UN Charter has has some power to enforce the views. The power they have is through the Security Council, and we know that we have a veto to all the major powers in the nation.
Right.
Again, even that will be applicable to Israel or not, based on our friends or enemies in the UN and in the Security Council, and not with
Israel is rarely scared by scare tactics. So we'll wait and see what happens tomorrow. Of course, we're waiting to see if Benjamin Netanyahu
Let's hope,
announces
especially if we have the US on our side.
Sure. Simcha, thank you so much for that insight.